How's it going, guys? Charlie from Drunk Guy Explains. This is Craps Masterclass Lesson 5, Tipping the Dealers. So there's a couple of different approaches about tipping the dealer. Essentially what I do is that tipping the dealer is a tool that you utilize to essentially further your goal of making money in craps. I know that's a very winded answer, but essentially think of it like this. If you're running a certain system and you're consistent in doing it, but you have to really communicate with your dealers over and over again. You have to build a rapport with them. A way to do that for me, and sometimes, especially when I was first off starting craps, I'd put $10 on the don't and $10 on the do. It's an offsetting bet unless you roll a 12 when the point is off. So what I would do that is that a lot of times, a 7 happens, they take the don't and then they pay the pass. So the problem with that is that if you don't look down and see that, a lot of times if they roll and the point comes on, they just stack it up and have a $20 due. So a lot of times I would tip the dealers like, hey, every time that you catch me doing that and I don't offset, I'll tip you $1 for catching me because you're saving me money. So they got in the habit of doing that for me. And then when they paid me, they would already offset it back to the do and don't. So that's a way that I used a $1 tip to make sure that I kept myself in check. Now, predominantly, other than just doing crazy stuff like that, if you're up in profit and you want to tip. Me, however, at the home casinos I go to, when I say home casinos, the casinos I primarily go to, what I do is essentially this, is that, I know this is gonna sound crazy, is that 10% of my total winnings go back to the dealers. Now, I consider that like kind of giving 10% back to the church, 10% back to Yahweh, whatever you want to consider that 10% to go to back to charity. That's me saying, hey, I'm paying my dues. And guess what? I do work a dealer extremely hard, especially if I'm doing a system that requires a lot of just moving chips around. I'm going to tip the dealer to reward them on that. However, realize what I'm doing. I've built a rapport with my home dealers. Those dealers have now turned into floor managers or pit bosses or area managers. So realize that if I'm at a casino and let's say I'm never going to come back to that casino, I will tip according to basically how the experience went. Now, if you made a lot of good money, you want to tip, absolutely, you do that. I've had dealers before though be complete and utter ridiculous, just hard-headed, don't want to listen, don't want to take me seriously because I look a little young for my age, or just don't want to do my bets. And because of that, I'm an experienced craps player. I know how to adjust my betting, and I'm going to work that dealer till his back is thrown out. Now, because he's making me do all this extra effort and because he's having a little bit of attitude, I'm not going to tip him. I'm not going to give him the respect or the tips that show that kind of correspondence or that kind of correlation. Okay? And now realize that, once again, tipping is a tool. Okay? They're making an hourly, they have benefits, they have all the things that you want. I say if they're doing a great job, tip them. I think that if you win money, you should tip them. Me personally, I tip 10%. And usually I think the most I've ever tipped somebody is like $100, like 100 afterwards. And I always treat it like that. Don't tip them off when you're not leaving that door because you ain't up until you out. So I mean, at the end of the day, I tip when I'm walking out the door. Hey guys, appreciate it. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, especially in the online craps community, if they see you have a handful of chips in your hand and you have a bunch of pumpkins, blacks, you have blues, you have every color of the rainbow, but then they look and they see you have a bunch of $5 and $1 junk chips, they're gonna be like, hey, why don't you throw that junk to the dealer, man? Come on, you're gonna try to get that extra $3 out the bank? So realize that, in the community, it's kind of like a restaurant thing. Like, how do you tip? But me, 10%, it's usually good. Generally speaking, I usually on a 5K bankroll make between $500 to $2,000 in a session. So in saying that, I'm tipping between $50 and $200. Now, mind you, if I'm sitting here tipping $1 and $5 as I go along, I'm keeping track of that as well. Hey, I'm keeping track of how much I've already given you. So at the end, I'm like, hey, I've already given y'all 60, so here's 140. Or hey, I've already given y'all 60, I'm up 500. Actually, I gave you a little bit more than 2%, so you're good to go. Sail on. So realize that when you're tipping the dealer, realize it's a tool. It's a method for you to get to your goal. And your goal is this, making money off craps. Well, guys, this is Charlie from Drunk Guy Explains. I will check you next time.